Hello, my friends and family from around the world. This is Lada from AstroladaOfficial. And today we're talking about the full moon in Aquarius, which will be happening on the 11th or 12th of August, depends when the world you are in the year 2022. I don't usually make videos for every full or new moon, but this one is something else. It's very special, it's quite dramatic. So I will cover all the 12 signs and the world manifestations that can happen. And before we start, just to tell you that we're starting an 8-week course on relocational astrology with our favorite teacher, Victor. He will explain how to do relocation, what is the best place for you to live, local space relocation as well within a small, not just all over the world, and how to sell and buy, when to sell and buy properties, the description of the properties, and the place for you to live in. So everything about place of living, relocation, and so on. So check it out. There is early bird discount for those of you who come on the course. I'll put the link below. Now, let's start with this full moon in Aquarius. Why did I want to cover it so much and to make predictions for the 12 signs? I will share my screen so you can see how it looks. Okay, here it is, desktop, share, and sorry, where am I? Here it is. This is the chart, if you can see it. And here is the full moon. It's happening. The moon is conjunct with Saturn. So that's already a full moon. When you see the full moon, Saturn will be very close to it, almost on top of each other. And as we know, Saturn is it's like the small hand of the clock, where it's showing where the biggest, most important events and especially challenges tend to happen in one's life. And the moon just enhances. Wherever the full moon appears is like a projector. Imagine you're at the theater and a spotlight is on you. So the full moon will focus its energy on a Saturn. And in particular Saturn in Aquarius, which entered Aquarius around April 2020. So the themes of the Saturn in Aquarius from around early April 2020 till now will really escalate. And full moons are about something, having completion or seeing the results or getting clarity about something, becoming very aware about the consequences of something or things escalating, something that was put into action. And we all know what started happening around the spring of 2020. The consequences of this thing will be very visible, or they'll be escalating around the world. This is what this full moon will be showing us. So August is not just on the 11th and 12th. It starts being felt even 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the full moon. But what is the sign of Aquarius? First of all, we know it's freedom of speech and so on, but it's also Aquarius rules the people, the general population, the society on the whole. And the moon also in astrology, in Horarius, in mundane astrology, symbolizes the people. So it's a bit like this full moon enhances it, and it puts the spotlight on the situation of society as a whole, on the people, society, but it's in a tough way because Saturn is there. So it's like some tough consequences of when Saturn entered in April 2020 Aquarius. Since then, now we're seeing the results of it. It's escalating and people are disgruntled, or people feel suppressed, which is Saturn, or people feel dissatisfied, disappointed, or fearful. And but it's not staying just with that fear, because look at this full moon. It's square Uranus and Mars, which are very rebellious energies. They call revolutions, they call rising, they call outcries of anger. So it's not just going to be people having very tough circumstances. And you're seeing it already. I mean, the prices of gas and electricity have gone on the market 5 times, and they still haven't raised them. It's becoming aware that many people won't be able to be warm during the winter, and not to mention the production of goods, and everything can rise to a very high price. So, but it's not just going to be the people that are in tough circumstances. They can be an outcry that starts this August with some actions that follow, which is Mars Uranus that are aggravated for that. And look, this full moon is opposed the sun in Leo. The sun naturally associated with rulers, so is Leo. Call it elites, call it those in power, call it those that are privileged, you know. So there is a tension, it's an opposition. There is a tension between those in power and the normal people that are in hard circumstances. Look at them, they're conjunct Saturn. And of course, in the sign of Aquarius, of normal people, plus Aquarius is also the economy overall, all the markets. There's something that's suppressed there, that's something that is not good. And we all know what it is. And it's also square, which is another hard aspect, the Uranus-Mars conjunction in Taurus, in the sign of money, in the sign of your savings, in the sign of the prices, in the sign of resources like food and anything of first necessity that makes us, sustains us to live, that is food and goods. So we're seeing an escalation of the situation. If anything, the Mars-Uranus conjunction that happened at the beginning of August, it will be activated now, and we can start seeing truly the influence of that conjunction, which will be affecting us for the next 15, 16 years till the next Uranus-Mars conjunction. Sorry, not Uranus North Node. Sorry, not Mars, Uranus North Node and Mars as well. But we're slowly starting to see now from August the escalation of such matters. So it's very interesting to see what happens. It's going to be tense around the world. And you see, always when we have a T-square, this is when planets are 180 and 90 degrees from each other. On the opposite side, the sign, it can actually, the results of this tension of the planets can come out through the opposite sign that completes like a square. And for us, that's the south node. You can't see it here, but it's the south node in Scorpio. So the release of that tense energy that's happening between rulers and people and the finances and money and resources can escalate through Scorpio. And Scorpio is the sign of rebellion. Scorpio is a sign of belligerence. Scorpio is a sign of violence sometimes. Is a sign of taxes, is the sign of, it rules the natural gases as well and such things, and resources from under the ground. So look out, possible. And Scorpio as well rules like eruptions, explosions, and tense situations of any sorts. And the IRS and anything connected to taxes and so on. So watch out maybe for such developments that maybe are triggered from the markets, from the economy, and they are channeled, and there is the disgruntlement of people, and they get channeled through that Scorpio energy. On a personal level, though, we can see a special activation of the sign Aquarius, where Saturn has been for the last 2 years and a bit. And there'll be some escalation, completion, we're seeing the results of something very important theme for us. And on the personal level as well, be more careful around those days, the 11th, the 12th. There can be more tensions between people, more resentments, but even kind of Mars square Saturn, the moon and the sun. I mean, it's a bit dangerous, let's say. And I'm not saying physically necessarily, but they can be on a personal level, more people can be triggered more easily. People can be more, especially those signs, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, they're very much about values and security. And because of a threat of their values or security, they can be big clashes between people, especially if you have planets in the fixed signs, Aries, Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, and Taurus around those degrees. You see the degrees of 19, 22, anything from, I would say, from 15 degrees in the fixed signs to around 25 degrees in the fixed signs, which includes me. And I'm already feeling the tension, my breathing again. Every time there is nervous energy around, my breathing gets heavy. My nervous system is very sensitive. And but I don't want to scare, on a personal level. This can create some kind of a big release and big completion and seeing the results of something, some big realization and awareness. And we can now cover the 12 signs, so you know what to expect. Especially focus on your ascendant sign if you know it. If you know your moon sign as well, it'd be great to check it next. And of course, the sun sign. Everyone knows their sun sign. Check that sign as well if you can. All right. Let me take a breather and we'll continue. So Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising. The focus will be on your 11th house because that's where the full moon will be with Saturn. Maybe something, 11th house is long-term goals and dreams. So if you've been working on some project for a while now, maybe even for the last 2.5 years, so maybe towards some goal that requires you even to kind of um, neglect your personal life and having fun and so on, that you're putting a lot of focus there, it can come either to a completion of some sort, or you might be required to put some extra efforts, but you are seeing something starting to form there. And you might need to reconsider something and reorganize something there. This full moon can mean, okay, it's not working as it's like you've been planning it till now. Maybe you need to change something. Maybe you need to downstream or streamline, sorry, something, which is what Saturn is, to make less complicated, more reliable. Also, these are your friendships, the 11th house. They can be a big focus on not only friendships, close friendships, but it's also like your community. Where do you belong? Who is your tribe? So there can be such focus in some difficult decision that you have to do in regards to take, in regards to groups that you belong to, whether online or if you have a following, or if you have clients. The 11th house will relate to your clients, to your following, to your audience in some way. So there might be some, even for your public persona and reputation, there might be some challenge that is forming, or some difficult activity that you have to do that is directly influencing those relationships in your life, or some difficult decision you have to do. And there can be some testing situation happening with friends or people in your social environment. As at the same time, Saturn there is and the moon are squaring Mars and Uranus in your second house. There can be some escalation of a financial situation, something connected to money, with possessions, with resources, ownership of something, that you need to make some important decision. And you have to be a bit more careful about spending around that time, because there can be some sudden expense that appears, or something connected to finances, because of which you are taking some important decisions connected to with your long-term goals and dreams or plans of any sort. Now, the second sign is Taurus. Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising. The full moon with Saturn is happening in your 10th house, Taurus. So there is direct impact on your career, on your public image as well. It can be like the projector of the moon is focused on your career. So there might be some difficult decision that you're taking in regards to your career. You might be feeling it already. And some culmination or completion, something coming to an end, or some big realization in regards to your career, or in regards to your social situation, social reputation, which makes you make certain changes of some sort. Or there can be some important development with an institution or authority figure, or a father figure of some sort, or some boss, whatever. And it might be tense, and it might directly stress your personal life, your feelings and emotions. And of course, the moon with Saturn in your 10th house, which is where it's showing the culmination, the completion, something coming to an end, or something you're seeing the results of it in regards to your career. But it's squaring planets in your first house. This is either your sun, your moon, or ascendant if you're Taurus. And Uranus and Mars are in your sign. So you might find yourself reacting more violently or more stressed than normal. You can find yourself, whatever is happening will initiate you into action, though, because these two highly volatile but also energetic planets, Uranus and Mars, are into your first house, and this full moon triggers them. So it can push you to undertake something radically new, to do a big change in your life, with your health, with your life, with your appearance, with your direction in life. The first house rules all of those things. So I think this full moon is particularly powerful for you, Taurus, especially if you have any planets from around 15 degrees in Taurus, if it's your sun, moon, or ascendant, to around 25 degrees in Taurus, you'd feel it very, very strongly. Yeah, as I said, it affects your personal life, your career in particular, your public image. And because the last leg of the empty space of this T-square that's happening is in your seventh house, it can be some kind of a release. The tension can be released through relationship or through another person. And it can also indicate that it also affects your personal relationship. So you have to be a bit more careful there. But the biggest changes of this full moon are coming to Taurus. The next sign is Gemini. Gemini, sun, moon, or rising. The full moon is happening in your ninth house, which is kind of supportive, but it's something that maybe you've already been experiencing for the last 2 years, starting from 2020. It might be like culmination. You might have some powerful realization, especially connected to matters regarding education, higher knowledge. Something might be coming to a completion there, or realization that is not the right path, so you need to change something, or something important is happening there. Or ninth house is also connected with your beliefs, with the teachers that you follow, with the teachings that you follow, with what gives you inspiration and meaning, with your future goals in a way. So there might be some big realization or changing there, some big approaching a belief system with a more critical eye, with a more down-to-earth approach, and questioning everything. It's very much about questioning whether information or your old belief systems that are escalating and coming to the surface, and you're changing them in some way. And all the axes of the mind are being triggered with the ninth house, the third house with this full moon, the sixth house, the 12th house, the conscious and subconscious mind. So for Gemini, this full moon might not bring necessarily very externally visible developments, but there might be like a big shift internally in their subconscious, in their way of thinking, in their way of perceiving reality, and big realizations about certain false beliefs they might have had, or certain blocking beliefs, which come to an end, which you are releasing in a sense. And so that there is this, so it might be good, like, for example, to do some inner work. Ninth house is the house of self-growth, self-knowledge, self-help, all of those things. So there might be some breakthrough and deep realizations that you have in regards to those matters. Or some of you might, if they've been working on their self-growth, studying something, expanding themselves, or questioning their belief systems, it can be like a culminating period of some sort. Also, something important related to travels or foreign countries can be happening, some important news. It might be a bit stressful as well, especially for Gemini. I would recommend that not necessarily to travel around the 11th and 12th, because it's triggering their travel houses, so it can be a bit stressful. So yes, that's interesting. And that ninth house is triggered for you, so it's higher education, anything to do with pre-qualification, anything to do with your belief systems, anything to do with teachers and father figures, foreign places, and so on. Cancer, sun, moon, rising. This full moon in Aquarius with Taurus is happening in your 8th house. For the last 2 years, Saturn has been transiting your 8th house, but now there's this August is specifically powerful time for you to see how you've been doing those transformations that Saturn requires from this 8th house. The 8th house is one of the houses of the subconscious and dealing with past traumas. And sometimes people get stuck on trying to shift their, on overcoming some trauma, for example. And Saturn with the moon there can be a big like realization about certain patterns, emotional patterns that you've been having related to trauma from the past, and hopefully some kind of a release that happens for you as well. And the eighth house as well is connected to trust. So the issue of trust with another, of opening yourself unconditionally, whether it's in an intimacy, in an act of intimacy, in an act of sharing a secret. There might be some issues that are raised in regards to who you can trust, in regards to some secrets, something from the past as well, in regards to emotional insecurities that are raised to the surface to be discussed, and that can create some tensions for you. The eighth house, of course, is other people's monies and resources, support from whether it's pensions, government support, or alimonies, or money that you relied to come to you from others, like your clients' money, for example. And again, this topic, or your husband's or your wife's money, or your business partner's money. So this topic is being raised for you, Cancers, by this full moon. Maybe some difficult, complicated situation there you're forced to take a decision about, or to resolve, or to escalate, or anything involving taxes, insurances, inheritances, and other people's resources kind of can create some problem that needs to be solved, but also some conclusion and resolution eventually. Of course, it's also the full moon. It's happening with the sun in your second house and the moon with Saturn in your eighth house. These are two houses of finances, resources, self-worth, anything connected to the tangible material, stemming from the deeper how do you appreciate yourself. So such themes of how do you value yourself versus how others value, how much you receive from others, or how much you are having problem receiving help from others. These themes will be brought up to the surface, maybe in a painful way because Saturn is involved, but maybe like a turning point for you, and taking some important decision in those matters. Yours versus mine, how much do you give versus how much I give? Such themes can be active for you. My money, your money. But again, I would advise you around this full moon to be a bit more careful with your investments, with your money, with your mutual finances and resources, unless you have to, and it's compulsory, not to take some important decisions because the energy is a bit too volatile, so to speak. And of course, Uranus and Mars are squaring your eighth house from where the full moon is happening, from the 11th house for you, Cancers. That can involve also matters of friendships, matters of social connections can be triggered. And again, 11th house is the house of gain, so another financial house being activated here for you. Now, Leo, Sun, Moon, or Rising. This full moon directly affects you. One of the signs that is most affected is you, especially if you're around Leo, from around 15 degrees, Sun, Moon, or Rising, to around 25 degrees. This full moon can be felt extremely powerfully, can trigger a big change in your life. And especially full moons are about seeing the end of something, completion, seeing the final results of something in regards to relationships. For some of you, it might be. Some of you, and full moon is about also, and Saturn is something from the past. Some of you might have reconnecting with people from the past, especially someone that you haven't completed something with, or someone that there is still something to work through. And those themes can be brought to the surface. For some of you, it can be even a powerful realization about a relationship, that personal, business, or relation, any kind of client relationship or contract of some sort that comes to a completion, comes to a conclusion, or you're reevaluating it, seeing the final results of it, seeing what's working and what's not working. It can happen through some crisis that you go. And especially this full moon with Saturn wants you to, and for the last 2 years, Saturn has been trying to teach you that, but now it will be some escalation of that topic to really be very selective who you let close to you, to really remove the dead wood, like with a scythe. One of the symbols of Saturn is a scythe, the dead wood scythe, to chop up the dead weight. The people that bring you down, the people that might waste your time, or the clients, or the contracts and agreements that are maybe just time wasting or too much dead wood, and just downsize, streamline your relationships, make them simple, but make them with better improved rules. So this full moon is really, and what are your barriers? When do you say stop to someone? When do you say enough is enough and no? So it can escalate. Of course, that can be frustrating if you're having to put barriers and some kind of disappointment might be involved in a relationship or with others, some kind of, again, as I said, downsizing or criticism that you experience through others or another. But ultimately, it will give you a lot of clarity, and because the full moon illuminates always, gives awareness, and some important development with the relationships. So, for some of you, it can, on a more positive level, it can mean committing further into a relationship, taking a relationship to the next stage. That will entail some kind of deeper commitment, whether it's business partnership or marriage partnership or a boyfriend, girlfriend, where you take on some responsibility together. It can also indicate, because the full moons are about completion, that you're completing something in a relationship or in a partnership, in collaboration, that is giving you its results, and that you might have to put some extra effort there as well, which is Saturn. And you might be released from certain contract after that, through certain obligation towards another person, like one last push. But of course, your 10th house is very strongly triggered as well, because Mars and Uranus are there in your 10th house, squaring the planets in the 7th. So they can be push and pull and tension, this full moon, that creates something about your career, reputation, or with authority figures and institutions, that directly influences your personal relationships or business relationships. You might be taking some important decisions in relationship that influences your career, your goals for your career. Something might be happening in your career, especially something more new, that can influence directly your relationships. But something escalates there in relationships. You need to take a decision there, through a crisis or whatever, and hopefully you come up with better boundaries, better structure and order and rules. And especially if you've been dissatisfied with something, about something to your partner or those business partners around, or your marriage partner, relationship partner, it can escalate and be said and spoken out. Hopefully it will lead for the better, Then the next sign is Virgo. Sun, moon, or ascendant in Virgo. The full moon is happening in your 6th house with Saturn. There might be some realizations and important decisions that you take in regards to your work, in regard to that you bringing to a completion some work project, for example, that you're something to do, 6th house is duties and responsibilities towards the world, towards others, that such a duty or responsibility comes to an end, to a completion, or that you have to put focus towards changing something there, towards a duty, responsibility, or your job. There can be more hard or difficult situation at your work, with a project or in a working environment with your colleague, a bit more tense. There might be some fight about belief systems, even with those in your work environment, because Uranus and Mars is squaring those planets, the full moon in your 6th house. Also, your vision for the future, which is the 9th house, and you're having some new ideas, new visions, new belief systems that are forming a new expectations for the future, but that might clash with your daily routines and challenge them and ask you to change something with your habits, with your health routines as well. Do you work out? How do you eat? How much do you drink? How much do you sleep? What food do you eat? Do you exercise? So something is new is forming up in your belief system, Uranus and Mars in the 9th house, and in your goals, which can take you out of your comfort zone, in regards to your habits and your daily habits, in regards to your routines, and make you either stop and complete and end some unhealthy habit, for example, or eliminate and limit, because Saturn is about structures and routines and putting more limitations on such things. Plus, as I said, the 6th house is your work and is your work responsibilities and duties. There can be some escalation, or some of you might even decide that they don't want to work in the same place anymore. It's not just about completion of a project. Some of you, it might be like, oh, I don't want to be in this place anymore, and take some important decision there. Others, if they've been working hard, they might see the results of their hard work. They might see the final you know, and there might be some final push of work that they have to do and see the results of that. Okay. Libra sun, moon, or rising. The full moon in Aquarius will be happening in your fifth house with Saturn. And there can be some escalation of your relationship with your children. They might be a bit more difficult because this full moon is triggered by a lot of hard transits. They can act out, and it might be time to put certain boundaries if you have children. Um, or, you know, if you don't have children, it might be the theme of having children that is escalating and becoming important for you. On another level, though, fifth house rules love life, your romantic love life, whether you're married or no, the ability to have fun, to go out, to enjoy yourself, even if you're single. So Saturn, the full moon with Saturn is asking you to ask yourself some questions, you know, where do you put a limit on what is healthy kind of fun? How do you take whatever you consider to be your romantic interest, for example, and where do you put the limit? So there might be some escalation in your romantic lifetime, in your romantic relationship, some important conversations that you might lead with a loved one about how you feel loved or how you don't feel loved, because the fifth house is how loved do you feel. And funny, my husband is Aquarius rising, sorry, Libra rising, and he's been having Saturn in his second house for the last 2 years, and from there it's making some hard aspects now. So he's been coming and asking me, are you still in love with me? And now with this full moon escalating, this topic of are you still in love with me, you know, might be become important for Libra rising people who are in a relationships, and they might have to have an important conversation with your loved one to understand how to do things differently, what to do for their, or some of them might even decide that certain romantic relationship is no longer valid, and to or it's no longer supportive of them, it's no longer what's needed for them, and to look at this romantic relationship with a critical eye, and to put boundaries there, to end it even in some extreme cases. At the same time, the other Mars and Uranus are squaring the full moon in your fifth house from your eighth house. There can be some tensions because of finances, because of mutual finances and resources, whether it's investments in the stock market or in pension, or you as a family, or money, or your business, your if you have a business partnership with someone, the finances there, or something connected to taxes, insurances, inheritances, that it's also putting stress on your romantic life, on your ability to have fun and enjoy yourself, and or maybe on some creative project, because full moon with Saturn in the fifth house can indicate that some creative project is escalating or coming to a conclusion or to some important point. That's something you've started already before, but you need to correct something or fix, or maybe some new developments connected to resources or connected to sponsorship of some sort might have interference or influence as well. Also, your ability to go and have fun, there might be some blockage or some stressful situation because of your mutual finances, or because of financial reasons, so to speak. But yeah, so most importantly, this fifth house generally is a positive house, but the full moon there makes you think about your love life, escalates topics about love life, or about fifth house is speculative investments. I'll ask you to be careful. Anything to do with stock market, anything to do with investments and money, because all the financial houses are being triggered for you. The fifth house, the eighth, the second by this full moon, to be a bit more cautious, maybe to withdraw back, to downsize, to anything connected to financial decisions, rather than to take rash decisions, you know, to be cautious, let's say, and to prefer to take or make less rather than big. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful for you, Libra. Then Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising. This full moon is going to happen in your fourth house, family life, and directly opposing the sun in your 10th house. There might be some tension between your career and your family life. And or parents as well. This is the axis of parents. There can be some tension there, some important developments connected to that. So important developments connected to bosses and authority figures that directly affects as well your personal life, place of living. You can figure it might be time to put certain boundaries with family members that comes to the topic. And you can notice that family members are more critical or more difficult to deal with, or they require more responsibilities and taking care of. But also it can indicate full moon is about some completing some kind of family responsibility or duty to a parent, or completing some family project or property or real estate project. But it can, because there are a lot of hard aspects on this full moon, it can be completing or needing some changes with a bit more stressful situations around. Then the other part for you Scorpios, you will feel this eclipse, sorry, this full moon so powerfully because you're one of the signs, one of the fixed signs, especially if you have planets from around 15 degrees to 25 degrees in Scorpio. Big changes can happen on a personal level, also career and in relationships, because your seventh house of relationships is also triggered by this eclipse, sorry, by this full moon. I keep calling it eclipse because Mars and Uranus are there, and something new is developing in your relationship or in your attitude towards other people. Maybe new people are entering your life, or maybe new clients or new kind of insights are coming to you from others. But that can create tensions in your personal life as well and in your family. So you see how the most important axes are triggered for your relationships that can be triggered around this full moon in a stressful way as well. So Mars is there. There can be eruptions and uh, face-offs or blowouts, even with family members, with relationship members, with clients. Seventh house can be with business partners or marriage partners, and that directly affects your career and your reputation and decisions you take to the direction of your life. So you Scorpios have to be also careful that your sign is also directly affected because the south node is there and it's squaring the full moon. So it's best if you approach this whole situation that is something is shifting on many levels for you, it's escalating, and it's not something new, it's something that you're aware around already that requires your attention, especially on a personal level with family, with your feelings. So and with relationships, but it's best to approach this whole situation through the lenses of the south node, and that south node is detached observer. So kind of almost like in a meditative zoned out state, like you're watching it on cinema. It's not happening to you, it's happening like observer, the observer attitude. And south node is passiveness, and some kind of a release that is happening in your sign Scorpio, because basically the south node is the peak there of this T-square of the full moon. So that's where a lot of the energies is going to be released through. So for you, it can be even some kind of a cathartic, spiritual, psychological release to some situation that happens through your personal life or relationships or career, through others, that there is some cathartic, even a bit of a withdrawal within you and release of a lot of pain, because of course, Scorpio is the sign that releases trauma and pain. But you kind of, especially if you take a step back and don't get involved in the drama, that's the attitude of the observer, the passive energy of Ketu, the south node that's in your sign. That is the best approach for you. And you might be almost like the energy that calms down everything instead of exploding. Now, if you're a Sagittarius sun, moon, or rising, the full moon is happening in your third house. And of course, it's triggering the third and the ninth house axis. And the topics, especially of communication and conversation, which have been very active for you for the past 2 years, where you are restructuring how you think, trying to make your thinking processes more organized, your work processes, your daily activities, third house is all of those things, and even removing superficial relationships or interactions from your life, because you want your mind to be more organized, focus on more serious things for the last 2 years, 2020, 21, 2022, but now it gets even escalated. For some of you, it might indicate cutting connection, this full moon, with certain people in your everyday environment, whether it's on social media or friends, if they are not supportive or if they're too superficial, if there's some kind of resentment there, putting some boundaries with social media or with communications of some sort, so with relatives and neighbors and siblings. It might be an escalation of situation with such people. That again makes you aware of how important it is who you communicate on a daily basis with, and especially that you don't waste your time talking about superficialities. Third house is also about completing this full moon in the third house, maybe something connected to learning or studying, learning some skill, some project that involves teamwork as well, some commercial business activities that you're completing or having to fix there, or having to even correct something, because Saturn is a planet of correction, and put it attention. Something to do with the vehicles as well, or trips. It might be a bit more risky to travel around the 11th and 12th for you guys, if possible to avoid it. Third house is transportation and so on. There might be some blockages or some, I don't know, more difficult, stressful situation, let's say. On another level, the full moon is triggering also the ninth house of beliefs, third house of communications with others. There might be some tense situation in communications due to challenges of your beliefs, of a different view of beliefs, or some important development with travels as well. And your mind, something might be shifting in your mind, because all the houses that are triggered by this full moon are third, ninth, sixth, and 12 houses. These are the houses of the rational mind, the third and the sixth, and the higher mind or the subconscious, the ninth and the 12th. So there might be some big shifts, some big realizations happening on a conscious and subconscious level for you. The higher and the lower mind, that it's kind of the this full moon might not be so visible in external ways for you, but it might be on a mental and psychological way that it makes a big shift and realization, something with your thinking that is being released or removed or changed in some way. So interesting, but yeah, your daily communication, transportation, devices for talking, phones, and so on, that might be very much on the agenda, such topics, something important happening around that. Maybe something a bit more challenging. It's not the easiest full moon, so to speak. Something that needs to be fixed or that's broken, something that comes to a completion or ending or re-examination. Then, if you're Capricorn Sun, Moon, or Rising, this full moon is happening in your second house. It's triggering actually your financial houses. The second is your own personal finances. So you might be coming up to some realization about your personal finances, something connecting to even because full moon can allow you to release things that are not necessary in your life anymore, like possessions, like throw out certain things, certain old things, which is Saturn, certain things that feel like a burden. And it might be a realization. Actually, Saturn in your second house has been trying to do this for the last 2 years, but now is especially a peak moment about helping you be less wasteful with resources, helping you be more responsible and mature in your finances, take extra responsibility, downsize even, or having to save for something, having to structure your finances more wisely, more sparsely as well, or sometimes people just are saving for something big time. So there'll be a big focus on finances and resources with this full moon. For some of you, it might be some challenging situation or some expense that appears, even some tension between your money, my resources, your resources, because the full moon in the second house is opposed by the sun in the eighth house. My values versus your values, how much you contribute versus how much I contribute, my money versus my client's money. And the sixth and the fifth and the 11th house are also triggered by the nodes and Mars and Uranus. These again, financial houses, security houses. So for Capricorns, and actually all the cardinal signs, the kind of sense of security might be, all the focus might be on the sense of security, on their values, on and this might be shaken, the sense of security. And for them, this full moon with the world events or whatever is happening can directly influence your finances, your savings, your self-worth. Some of you might complete some activity connected to source of income and end it, or some kind of resources that they complete and end, or put on, or some work that they've been doing towards gaining resources can be completed as well. And of course, if you're Capricorn rising or sun or ascendant, Mars and the North Node are squaring the full moon, and Uranus as well from your fifth house. There can be some escalation of topics about love, about um, uh, children as well. Your children might be more whoa around this full moon, and more accident prone, and also some kind of escalation of romantic relationships what to talk about, but also something new that's being born there. This full moon can trigger like you to really shift in a big direction, in a big way. Uranus, Mars, these are all new energies in regards to your attitude towards a love relationship, or even a new love relationship, so interest, or a new hobby or a new passion. It might be just some kind of hobby or passion that appears that directly affects and takes you out of a comfort zone in regards to your self-worth, in regards to your finances, resources, money, maybe some new hobby that kind of you need to put money into it, or some new passion or love, so it changes your values and resources and so on. Some creative project that you start that requires you to reconsider your finances in some way and your resources. All right. And then if you're Aquarius, of course, this full moon will affect you the most. You can, especially if you're from around 15 degrees in Aquarius, if you have sun, moon, or ascendant, to around 25 degrees in Aquarius, sun, moon, or ascendant. Whoa, this is a big one. This full moon is happening in your first house. If it's your sun in Aquarius, maybe it can have direct influence on the important men in your life. And it might be a bit challenging, like fathers or bosses or authority figures, husband, some important decisions, some important things happening in your life in regards to those, or in regards to your career, or in regards to the sun rules your career. Oh, actually, our beloved teacher Victor is Aquarius, and the Saturn is right on his sun and the full moon now, and he broke his knee. So with Saturn, sometime you have to be careful. He'll be leading the course on relocational astrology as well. But it's you have to be a bit more cautious around this full moon, as I said, because Saturn participates there, and it's very much even physical, on a physical level, breaking, tearing, something chronical that might point towards your health, whether it's your sun, moon, or ascendant, can escalate to make you pay attention more to yourself. This full moon is asking you to be in the spotlight to be on your physical health, on your body, on how you treat your body. I'm on Aquarius rising too, so feeling the tension of the energies. It's also about completing something. Some of you might be completing or having a big realization about some changes that first started happening 2 years for you in around 2020, when Saturn first entered our sign. And they've been happening where there's been a lot of focus on becoming more responsible, more mature, more organized, on slowing down, on realizing your age, or acting according to your age, of uh, taking your life into your own hands and becoming more responsible, or even building something from the beginning, laying foundations for some new beginning. So now there can be some important developments in regards to that, especially if you've been working hard on some new beginning or building something, whether it's building bodybuilding, whether it's building a business or some project. Now you might be seeing some results. Now it might be some escalation that requires you some extra work and effort, but you might be seeing results after that. But there is stresses around that time, because directly there's the escalations and culminations and seeing of results and the spotlight that's happening with you, some important decision that you have to take about yourself, about your health, about your appearance, or about the direction in your life, or about some project that you're personally involved in. But that can also create, you're receiving some stresses from your family. Maybe already some of you felt it. Uranus, Mars in your fourth house. I had a big blowout with my family, with my dad, directly accusing me of that I'm not good enough. The Saturn in the first house, full moon, is also triggering this feeling: am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Am I a good enough person, or am I the person I really want to be? I'm still have not achieved that perfection or whatever. And it's like somehow there can be a stressful situation between your family and you, or or you emotionally might be feel stress around this full moon because Uranus, Mars, and North Node in your fourth house is being triggered again. And of course, your relationships are directly affected. Your partner as well, if you have a partner, no, because the sun is part of this full moon. So it's and this T square, Sun opposite Moon and Saturn square Uranus and Mars there. I mean that it can affect your personal relationship as well. Your partner might feel triggered, or others can trigger you, partners, clients, challenge you. That can, especially make you think, what do I have to correct in myself? What can I be more strict with myself? Where can I put boundaries? Or even put, or am I uh, walling myself in too much? Such kind of questions. Am I detaching myself too much, and so on? So yeah, and it can directly also affect your career, and there can be some release through your career because the South Node is also squaring the full moon in the first and the seventh house. In the 10th house, there can be some release with the South Node connected again to parents, to father figures, release of some trauma, or it can be like in the worst case scenario, like this, where things erupt there, through your career, and through authority figures and so on. So yeah, a bit more careful, but some important developments that can turn your life, or that can have, and it's not something new. Full moons, it's something that you're already aware of, that you've been doing, that you can see results about, and take important decisions about whether to keep or to change or to eliminate. Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising. This full moon is happening in your 12th house. So it's not directly affecting you, so to speak. It's kind of subconscious, but you might find yourself that you're becoming maybe your sleep patterns. You might notice in your dreams that you're dreaming about something from the past, and or that your subconscious is bringing in moments of when you're alone and quiet or relaxing, that is bringing some worries or fears from the past, which is what Saturn is with the full moon, and uh, some more, let's say, negative feelings, in a sense, of things that are worrying you, or even in your dreams you might be reliving some difficult situation from the past that comes to the forefront, to be able to rework through those feelings and be released. But yes, just be aware that there is a possibility for you around a few days before the full moon and after to feel more worried, to have even some kind of like irrational fears. Actually, Saturn transiting the 12th house, which has been happening since 2020 for you. Anyone who has Saturn transit the 12th house, they know that irrational fears that they've forgotten, or maybe even due to past lifetimes or forgotten traumas, get triggered around that time. Sometimes people deal with phobias, with paranoias, or with fear, with some kind of fears and insecurity psychologically and emotionally, and those can escalate. But also, this is a great opportunity for release such things. We can't release them in one go, but little by little. Plus, it's a great opportunity now, this full moon for you Pisces, to really, really realize what you have to release from your life. Because Saturn transiting the 12th house is when there are many goodbyes and endings before it starts a new cycle from next year, when it will enter your sign. So for you now, it's like a peak moment this August, to see, like, to realize what is worth keeping, or maybe the universe can even take something from you, a loss, to take it away. But the ultimate goal is to free you, to be honest, so you can start anew. So you're not bonded to the old structures of some sort. So there might be some alchemical process happening in your subconscious, so to speak, about letting go, releasing. There might be extra expenses sometimes with the 12th house when the full moon happens there with Saturn, of course. There might be some important developments connected to faraway countries and places, some important development connected to some spiritual work, if you're doing spiritual work, if you're in astrology, or if you're in healing. There might be combination or completion of some project you're working on, some important development there. or it might be a reevaluation of your, kind of something. There might be disturbances with the sleep, or maybe deciding to make some changes with your sleep. Or if you're working on something behind the scenes, whether you're a poem, or whether you're writing a movie or a script where you have to alienate yourself, or whether you're painting something like in an art studio or in a laboratory where you're isolated, you might be having some important development there. Or if you're in a spiritual field, important development that escalates, that you see the results of, or that you're completing a project of some sort. Um, and of course, your sixth house is affected by this full moon because the sun is there. There can be some escalation of circumstances at your work. In regards to your health, that you have to take important decisions, especially to release something, to let go of something. And there might be some deep psychological realizations. Aquarius in the 12th house, Saturn, full moon there, deep in something from the subconscious coming up to your intelligence and you realizing it. But there might be, it's like your subconscious and conscious mind is being triggered by this full moon because Uranus and Mars are squaring this full moon from your ninth house and from your third house, sorry, from your third house, from Taurus. So you can even expect escalation of communications, that some important developments with traveling to happen, some important developments with communications, even some kind of stressful that you're triggered subconsciously and that you enter into a verbal fight or escalate, and also be a bit more cautious with your transportations around that time. It's happening in your third house, Mars, you're in a square, those planets in your 12th, the full moon, and in the sixth. And there might be some verbal confrontation with colleagues or people in your everyday environment, directly related to your beliefs, directly related to what triggers you subconsciously as well. Um, and having to take some important decision in regards to what you study, or what your third house is study, sixth house is work, or what people you communicate in your life with. And again, as I said, this full moon is about releasing and letting go of something that is no longer serving you. So you might kind of disconnect from certain groups of people or certain friends or relatives or whatever, so you can move forward more free. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to take the course with Victor, who's broken his knee, poor him, and he's gonna be full on, fully dedicated to this 8-week course on relocation, what your property, anything to do with where to live, what property to live in, local space, big distance relocations. That will be the most extensive course on relocation we are offering.